if Grogu becomes a full Mandalorian and he takes the vow or whatever they call it, we'll have to put an helmet on him. We'll never see him again. Well, unless he has his ears sticking out.
You've got to, honestly, mate, you've got to see some of the fan stuff on there where his ears actually inside the Mando helmet.
Really?
I'm not kidding. It makes so much money. It's just, and I'm buying 4,000 Funko Pops just of that. I mean, different, one way he's doing this on this side, one way, on this side, I don't care. He's holding a saber. One way he's got a little gun in there. I don't care. I'm buying them all.
It's a Star Wars kind of day today. I'm relying on you to fill me in on what's been going off in the world of Star Wars Celebration. So, just quick high level. What is it, like 4 days? I'm a geek, but I don't actually really get what Star Wars Celebration is.
I think it's 4 days, but it's basically it's like a Comic Con for just Star Wars. They put on their own shows. They usually sell tickets to the crowd where they will do it off camera, so it's not like a live cast. And they'll do all the big announcements or show the big trailers for the first time that they're not ready to share with the world, and they'll show people like first looks at shows. So they people make a big deal out of it. So it was in the States. It's like biannual, so it's every other year. So the next one's in Japan. This time it was in London this time around. So
was it?
Yeah, that's why it was all the announcements were nice and early in the morning for us when in the States they're all still asleep on there because it just gets moved around. So that's what
they didn't like time delay it. We didn't.
No,
oh, wow.
It was 11 a.m. in the morning, and like they were like 6 on the East Coast, and then like 4 on the West Coast. So it was fun times for those people.
Oh wow! I didn't realize that. And I take it this is just a post Disney buyout thing, right?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I think it's been going for quite some time, but I think it's just more of a fan event that's been turned into something. It's become quite popular. I mean, they must be selling tickets. Well, I know a couple of guys who actually went and they said it was amazing. They get all the kind of actors and stuff to go. It looks like, and all the kind of props and memorabilia, which I think in London got robbed on there. So a lot of big heist on there, yeah, with stormtroopers involved and everything, which is classic. So good news.
I mean, wow. All right, fair enough. Right, let's talk a bit about Star Wars then before we jump into Celebration, because I got very intrigued, and I've very recently finished a run of some Star Wars watching. So I finished Clone Wars.
Excellent. Good lad.
Finally got through that, and I've got to say, if someone was asking about Clone Wars, I'd say watch it, but I would say jump in on season 5.
Yeah,
like there's a lot of good stuff gone before it, but season 5 just ties so many things together, and I think that's where a lot of the stuff that I'm seeing in live action really gets sort of like its roots from. So yeah, season 5, 6, and 7, I thoroughly enjoyed absolutely all of it, and I've sort of smashed through that, and I've done. I actually watched Revenge of the Sith. Excellent. When I finished Clone Wars. I went back and watched that, and I did have some thoughts on that. But I've also done Tales of the Jedi.
Okay,
that's
excellent.
The 6th episode. That again,
different type of animation.
Yeah, it reminded me of the Animatrix. Do you remember that?
Yes,
they brought out 8 short
series with a different type of absolutely brilliant.
It just reminded me of that because it really did a good job of tying events together with Ahsoka going through a training regime where they just keep firing her with blasters set to stun, and then it tied into an episode near the end of Clone Wars, just after Order 66. There were so many good things. And Dooku, I did not realise that Dooku was technically a good guy during the events of The Phantom Menace.
It's all the point. It's all your point of view. When you think back and you look and see, well, these are the bad guys. Actually, they're not, and it's so clever what they've done with Star Wars, and they're excellent doing. And with Tales of Jedi, they go back and expand on something to make something that might not have gone down well in the first part, and they make it so much better. And they're so good at that. And I think Filoni's a big part of that for sure. But Tales of Jedi again expands on the Clone Wars, which expands on the visual prequel series. top tier Star Wars. It absolutely is.
I will say this, like, all the love I've heard for Dave Filoni, I'm really starting to get on that bandwagon the more I'm watching some of these things. I had those two kind of revelations. Revenge of the Sith does not hold up well. That's not that's not a great film, and it's just not good. The events that happen in it are pretty impressive, but as just a standalone film, some of the acting's a bit bad, the directing's a bit bad, the CG it doesn't hold up well. But then when I'm watching Tales of the Jedi and I'm seeing that Dave Filoni's name's all over all of this, I then had this sort of moment of, why didn't he do Obi-Wan Kenobi? Why didn't they give him that? Because it again, Obi-Wan Kenobi is sort of one of the things in current Star Wars that wasn't great.
Why didn't they give him the chance to fix certain things that wasn't great in the prequel? I think, to be honest, I think they've got to remember the time that this was filming on there, he hadn't rose to a power he's at now. The Mandalorian wasn't even out at the time. You've got to think about when this was obviously originally booked in. And you're talking 2-3 years back on there. He's now got to the point where he's now Jon Favreau level. We're going to talk about he's got going forward. And I think if they'd known this, what it was like now, a couple of years back, and yeah, absolutely, I think he would have been given Obi-Wan. I'm not saying it would have been any better, because I think he had probably had a decent amount of input in it as well. But
he probably did, to be fair. Yeah. So Star Wars, then I did this little timeline. Let me try and grab it up quickly now, because I got very fascinated by the history of Star Wars in terms of just its production. So you have in 1977, A New Hope. Empire was 3 years after that, and Return of the Jedi was 3 years after that. We got the 3 prequel trilogies. They were 3 years apart. This is one of the things that started to, again, blow my mind a bit. We had that. We then had the animated Clone Wars, which sort of kicked off with a 2-hour film, and then Disney step up and buy it for that $4 billion figure, which was was an insane amount of money. But they've technically already made all of that money back just off films. The box office.
They made all that money back off Grogu.
Well, yeah, they basically have. If you just look at the box office and budget of the first, I think, 4 films that they put together, first 5, because it includes Rise of Skywalker, they trounced it. They've at that point they've done it already, and all they've done is they've created a load of TV content, obviously all the merchandise and everything else. It's a phenomenal amount of money that we're talking about, but there is a lot of stuff, and it kind of impresses me that we used to have a 3-year gap between Star Wars films. Even the prequel trilogy, it took 7 years to get from Phantom Menace to Revenge of the Sith, whereas now we literally got a film a year for 5 years. Star Wars. It's the changing pace, I guess, of filmmaking, but it did sort of strike me a bit, because they've been a bit hit and a bit miss.
I mean, what will happen? I think what Disney's realised is that they can't do a film a year. They're not going to do a film a year. I really don't think so. I think the films that we'll discuss later that they've announced on there, they'll be spread out maybe over a 4 or 5 year period on there, where they'll have maybe a year gap between it. Disney, and not just Disney, a lot of the other big companies are realising now that it needs to be quality over quantity. Quantity just doesn't do it anymore. Marvel's showing that now. They've pulled back a lot of release on that. They know it's not working. So I think Disney obviously has, having Marvel and Star Wars under there, and what they can probably start doing now is maybe alternating their big releases. So one big release per year. There's basically kind of a whole gear towards, and then maybe, they can put on other stuff as well. I mean, Marvel can do more one film a year and not suffer for it. But Star Wars, I don't think can. I just think it needs to stay. They can have a TV series, multiple TV series, obviously, throughout every year, but it needs to be one film at most a year, and I'd like a bit of a gap between it, because it's that anticipation building. You don't want to see.
Yeah.
I think a direct sequel wouldn't work. The way they've decided to do it this time, I think is probably not the worst idea to do as well. Instead of doing three films that are all in continuation of each other, they're not going to be doing that. So that actually might be in their favour. It's not going to feel like, oh, we've only just had that last year. I think that might come in their favour. And I think Disney need to learn that, again, quantity is just not over quality. It just doesn't work anymore. And I think people are getting fed up with it.
Yeah, I think they've clearly got to have seen that. They've clearly looked at a lot of the stuff that they've been throwing out there and going, yeah, these are what's worked, these are what haven't. Just from your point of view, what are the things in terms of, let's say, from Disney taking over? We've had all them films and Clone Wars and a load of other TV shows. What have been the things that, in a sort of post-Disney buyout Star Wars universe, that you have really enjoyed?
Rebels and Mandalorian. And to a point, Andor, and obviously, and they're probably maybe the best actual film of a lot of them. Rogue One on there. That, for me, they're the only standout. I mean, they brought Clone Wars back again, obviously after the buyout, so they finished that, which was fantastic last season and stuff. But I mean, some of the films I've had out, not great on there. We know they're not great, but I think it's like I said, we can come back in maybe 10 years' time on there after they've released some of these sequels on there, and they thought, do you know what? That character was actually quite good. He was in a bad film, bad writing, bad acting at the time maybe, but the actual character self design isn't the worst, and they can always rectify the mistakes they make by just adding more to the lore, which that's the best thing about Star Wars, how they can do that, and I think we'll get that.
Yeah, I think that's what watching Clone Wars did for me. It really kind of made so many things work. And, the prequels got a load of flack. Jar Jar came under fire, and then Attack of the Clones looks like it was filmed on like PS1. The graphics, like the CG is not it doesn't hold up well. Everything's blue screen. But there are some good things in there. I mean, Obi-Wan is great. Ewan McGregor playing that role just feels perfect. I'd say the other interesting thing from Clone Wars is Anakin is a far better character in animation than he is in real life.
100% agree.
The gravitas of what he was to become in terms of becoming Darth Vader just sort of feels like every single scene weighed heavy on how does what's happening in this scene impact him turning into Darth Vader down the line. In Clone Wars, they just sort of made him a badass, a bit reckless.
Yeah, it's not even close as that. I mean, it's just one of those ones where, I mean, you'll see when you start watching Rebels on there as well. The way they do Vader in the show as well. It's just peak Star Wars on there, and I just think the problem is, and it's always the same animation there. If you get it right, you can't match it in live action. It's impossible because you can't make a person. People can't act in a way that it looks fake when they do it, because when you see like a drawn photo, or like I say, you look at a poster on there, it's still an image on there, and it just feels like an animation. They can have that still image where you can't do that with a person. You can see all the foils and everything. You can see the actor in the actual. Whereas it's just an animation. It's just literally, okay, I am doing Darth Vader. I'm not doing Hayden Christensen being Darth Vader. I'm not doing Hayden Christensen being Anakin. I'm doing Darth Vader, and you got that. Yeah. It's the perfect embodiment of the character, and that's why I've always preferred it in a way that you don't get that kind of with a live action. You always get that kind of massive kind of the whole kind of, because everybody else prefers that kind of method of portrayal on the screen. People enjoy it more, so everybody gets amped by excited about it. But for me, the best kind of films out there is usually animation. I just find it just. The way that they, especially these kind of Star Wars and even like superhero films, and the way they can just nail the characters, it's very difficult to beat it. And I feel bad for Hayden Christensen because he's actually very good. When you look back and some of the things he does, I think in Obi-Wan, some of the scenes where he's the menace in the background, he looks fantastic. But then when you look back at Clone Wars, you think, he's better than that. And it's not him, and it's so harsh. It's what it is.
I think when Obi-Wan Kenobi TV show came out, I seem to remember some talk. Obviously, they do the big media train. I'm sure I remember Hayden saying he owed a lot to the animation work in Clone Wars in terms of his character that he was portraying. I can't remember exactly the specifics of it, but I'm sure I remember it reading or hearing that kind of thing. And it's so true. He just wasn't given a lot to do. I don't think
the scripts aren't great. The scripts aren't great. They're not. I mean, the problem is, and the thing is, how do you follow up with the original Star Wars trilogy with a prequel series, which doesn't? You're trying not to wreck the future stuff on there by doing it on a trade war. It's difficult. It's hard what he had to work with. It really was.
It is, and George Lucas is got a great mind, and he's created some of the most iconic characters and worlds and content. He's not the world's best director. Phantom Menace was like the third film he directed, or something like that.
Yeah. It does show.
Yeah. Right. So let's take everything that's happened with Star Wars, push it to that side. Tell me now about Star Wars Celebration, because I don't know much other than, I guess, 3 names that are going to be important to us. How did it unfold? What was the big stuff?
So the way it started with they dropped, because they did their live presentation. You know about San Diego Comic Con, where they had their Hall H presentation. Yeah. Their Hall H started with Ahsoka, so they dropped that to everybody, which we didn't get to see it live. But they released a trailer online at the same time, which was great because I really wanted to see it. Being a Rebels fan, this was perfect for me. So they dropped.
Oh wait, sorry. I'm going to interrupt you. Quickly. Having watched only Clone Wars and not seen a single episode of Rebels, Ahsoka is one of my favorite characters so far. Oh, she's so cool.
Oh, get ready for Rebels. She's just cool.
I've seen her in Mandalorian live action with Rosario Dawson, but I've not seen any Rebels. But even with the limited kind of things I've seen of her, she's
she's
one of my favourite Star Wars.
I said to the other day, didn't I? She's for me, she's probably top 3 Jedi. I mean, she don't even call herself a Jedi by the end of Clone Wars, but for me, her as a Bridger and Kanan and Jarrus on there, I honestly think they are my 3 favourite. If I had to get rid of all the others, and it sounds awful when they've got a prequel trilogy and stuff, and I don't really care for Luke Skywalker. I just think as a character on there, he's very flawed on there, and it just doesn't do it for me because they didn't have the kind of. They didn't get the Clone Wars. They didn't get the kind of Rebels to kind of give you all these extra animated series like stories that you can really push the boundaries with. So these guys are my favourite Jedi. So when I see them turn up on live action, it's just I don't think you realize how giddy I'm getting about Ahsoka. I can't wait for you to watch Rebels, and then I can't wait for you to feel the same way. When they show up on that first episode of Mandalorian where Ahsoka turned up, I actually giggled a little bit like a schoolgirl, I'm sure. It was just like, oh my God, it was so good. So good. So yeah, Ahsoka was the first thing that dropped on there. They went then with the Skeleton Crew, which is a new series that's starting. In fact, I had an Andor beforehand. It was Andor series 2. Announced it's going to be out roughly August of next year on there. So we're going to do another, I think it's the similar amount of episodes again. So there'll be a season 2 of Andor. I'm not a massive Andor fan. I enjoyed it, but I just didn't think. For me, it's just not peak Star Wars, and I think season 2 will get there on there. But it's one of those things where I could have done with a film instead because I loved Rogue One. I could have done with it a prequel film instead, and I'd have been just as happy with it. It didn't need to be that dragged out. That's my only kind of gripe with it. It was still great TV.
That's where we differ because I genuinely really loved it, and I think the thing I loved was that they took a character from a film that isn't Skywalker. It's not connected directly to that universe, and they expanded it. The prison stuff with Andy Serkis, that's some great TV. Anyway, it is. And it might be that thing that always happens. When we start ranking things, that actually. That's probably one of my favourite Star Wars TV shows, but it's not, in terms of it's a good TV show, it's not perhaps the best Star Wars TV show.
That's the thing. What do you watch it for? I mean, I want to watch it for Star Wars. Right? I don't watch it for political intrigue. I don't watch it as a prison drama. I like it when they do that, and I don't mind it so much from them when they do those kind of things. But I wouldn't. It's like. I wouldn't want the West Wing, them to try and act like the West Wing in Star Wars. It just doesn't do it for me.
Yeah.
It's like the prequels on there, basically. That's why it's about a trade war. It's not massively Star Wars. It's just not that action adventure that you really want to go for a Star Wars for. So, but again, I'm not blind. It was great TV. Andor was excellent. Excellent directing, excellent acting on there, amazing actors in there for sure, and it looked beautiful on there. But it just, like I say, it could have. For me, it worked better as a film. Like Obi-Wan, I think it would work better as a film. It didn't need to be a series on there, and that was my gripe with it.
Yeah, I don't ever want to just completely trash things, but the fact that Obi-Wan and Andor were made at the same time, how are them two shows in production at the same time? And everyone was like, yeah, they're both great, let's roll. Like, mind blowing. I don't get that.
For me, it was quite, I think it's a simple thing. One's been directed by a committee and one's been directed by a director. It's just the whole kind of basically. Yeah. It's been. You can see what they did with like I said with Boba Fett, and they've done with Mandalorian. People having this kind of same issues.
Oh.
Every episode has a different tone, has a different feel about it. I'm not sure that works. The thing is, that you get that kind of like a refreshing episode each week, but some people are not going to like those episodes, and it kind of takes you out of the kind of tone of the show. So, like, you've got this director by committee where you've got what's like really great action director one week, and then you've got a really good kind of like character director the week after. And I think in this case, Andor had one director in charge of the whole thing over it. He's a great director as well, and it worked for them as that type of show. And I think this is the reason why some of the Star Wars shows are struggling. And I think people are kicking off on Mandalorian online, aren't they, at the moment?
Like Mando this season, you're sort of watching a TV show like this and you're getting it every week. And if you're dropping it every week in this type of thing, I want to have them moments where I can chat to someone and go, oh, what do you reckon's going to happen next week? And the problem with Mandalorian at the minute is every episode is, there's almost no continuation. Like, there's no real through routes of like, what is the big agenda of this episode? I can't have watched that one where they went back to Coruscant and then watch that and go, I wonder how that folds into the long overarching story of the Mandalorian, but I don't have enough nuggets of information dropped through it to sort of try and guess it. I've not watched today's actually, and that kind of
I haven't either,
a lot because I had a lot of time. I had a lot of time that I could have done that as well.
You just chose not to do it. I know.
I will watch it, and I hope I enjoy it. And I hope when I get to the end of the season, I go, oh, that all makes sense. But at the minute, I'm kind of going like, what's this? Why this? Yeah. Anyway, keep going. So,
we did Skeleton Crew, which was the new series with Jude Law and a bunch of kids. I don't know much about it, so I'm not going to go into it. Message.
All I saw of that was Goonies in space.
That's basically all I know. That's that. I don't. They've not released. I don't think they've released any kind of trailer. A couple of teaser pictures and stuff, but I don't think they're going to release a trailer online just yet. Same with Acolyte. Again, that's potentially going to be the best series that they've ever done. It looks fantastic. It's a prequel to. Okay. It's like High Republic time, I believe, on there, which is way.
So
before.
I don't know anything. So this is like.
Way before, so way before the prequels on there. So we're talking like hundreds of years before, like when Yoda's like young on there. So it's basically looking at the timeline on there. I believe I could be wrong with this one. I believe it's set in the Old Republic on there, not in the. Oh, it's even before that, the High Republic, which is they've kind of just set up in the new stories as well there. But it's going to be based on a Sith, I believe, who's basically coming to power. And it's got Jedi, and it's got lots of Jedi, lots of Sith, and then it looks like it's going to be really good. But that's not until next year. So they showed something that everybody seemed really impressed with it. I don't know much about it, so I can't really go into massive.
And this is a TV show again.
TV show. I think 6 episodes this time again, but it's again. I think we'll get once the trailer comes out. I think everybody will know about it. It's supposed to be a lot darker. Obviously focused on the Sith anyway, so it should be good. So that was announced. They then moved on to obviously announcing Tales of the Jedi Season 2. They're going to do some more of that.
Absolutely
love
that.
Great.
Love that.
You can't go wrong. I think it's out. In fact, I think it's out in this year. I could be wrong about next year. I'll double check on that for you. But Bad Batch Series 3, the final season. I'm even though it's a continuation of the Clone Wars story on then, it just continues straight after. For me, it's devoid of any kind of heart compared to the last one. I don't know. It just hasn't hit me the way Rebels and way Clone Wars has. So even though it's on its third season, I've watched the first season. I watched the end of the last season way after it had been aired, and then season 2 came on. I watched the first episode, didn't grab me again. I've not watched any more since.
Okay.
I will catch up, but just isn't doing it for me. It just seems to have.
Well, I've not watched any of that, obviously, but I did find it interesting that so season 7 of Clone Wars, the last one, that's the only Disney one, right?
Yes, I believe so. Yeah, the police.
So
yeah, it would have been.
It was kind of interesting to sort of see the first 4 episodes of season 7, which was essentially a backdoor pilot to the Bad Batch.
Yeah,
that was kind of what that was. I've not watched it. I'm not massively in a rush because I think the thing that I enjoyed about Clone Wars isn't the generic stormtroopers fighting robots.
Yeah, actually, I get what they tried to do with it as a continuation, but for me, you need like a main, like you need a Jedi and a Sith in it. If you're gonna do Star Wars animate on there, you need to have something. Chuck the Ahsoka in there or something. It just wasn't for me. So like I say, I couldn't even tell you what the season's been like. I've not watched it, so I'll get around to it eventually. But there, third and final season of that one's is coming.
Cool, and that's just quickly the Bad Batch. That's during the Clone Wars and before Order 66, I guess.
No, after Order 66. It's literally
is it after it?
So season 7 ends with the last episode of literally Order 66, doesn't it? So it continues literally straight after, literally as if it.
After that.
So it literally, so it's like so you got Palpatine taking over. You've basically got him kind of seeding out the kind of clones and starting to bring back in just normal stormtroopers.
Okay.
Like I say, it's not. It was not a good idea because I mean to see that before, obviously, Star Wars, came in. It's nice to see that kind of storyline, but just isn't. There's no hook for me. The main character, little girl, who's like kind of got. I think she might have force powers potentially. I'm not sure. It was annoying more than anything. But no, it's out there. Well, you can watch it if you finally get around to it. And then they came to the big announcements on there, which was basically got a lot of big, Kathleen Kennedy, who's got to save a job, basically, by the sounds of it. She needs a big win. After the last one, obviously, kind of hate she got on there because of the Rise of Skywalker. She needs to hit this out of the park, these next few films. And what they've decided to do is split them up into 3 different kind of times periods instead of doing direct sequels. And they've announced 3 films like they normally would do. But what they've done here is basically set it in between one at the Dawn of the Jedi on there, which is way before anything we've ever talked about, even before the Acolyte on there. One's going to be set during the Mandoverse years on there, which is going to be like a continuation, and obviously of the Mandalorian story, but with all the other kind of stuff like Ahsoka, Boba Fett, and Skeleton Crew, all going to be in like one big movie that Dave Filoni is going to direct. And the last one, which is probably the biggest one to announce, is set after the Rise of Skywalker with the new Jedi Order. I don't know what the film's going to be called, but it's going to be starring Rey and then potentially Grogu on there. Is the kind of big thing. Well, if you think about it, he's a Jedi. He's going to be a Mando Jedi, and can you think of how many toys they're going to sell? Him in a helmet with a lightsaber, flipping round. It's as if they're not doing that. They are doing that, 100%.
He's going to be a Jedi-Lorian.
Oh, well, there you go. But, I mean, it's going to happen. I'm skipping over the first one, obviously announced in there with the based one that was set in the Dawn of the Jedi, the first ever Jedi to come to power, and they're being directed by James Mangold, who's a fantastic
James.
He's Logan's
interesting. So he did Logan, right? And then I noticed the other one. He's the one doing the new Indiana Jones film.
Yeah, I'm sure that'll be fantastic. Yeah. I mean, the second trailer.
I've not seen any trailers for it, so I'm intrigued. Indiana Jones is a bit of my vibe, but we've dealt with that one before. But James Mangold's he's solid. Like That could be. And again, it's just nice to not be in Skywalker territory. I swear to God, if there's a character, if Skywalker's great granddad isn't in it, I'll be shocked. But
to be honest, it's going to be they're trying to do a kind of totally new period where they've got loads of room to play with. So they're going to be like the Jedi first coming into power. Obviously, then the Sith first Sith coming out there as well. They can play with that darkness kind of tone on there, which you get from Logan, like you do get in Logan. So again, it's not going to be as dark as obviously Logan, but it's going to be darker period. Which I think that's something a bit different, and that people are going to be interesting, good to see a bit more. Maybe a bit more like those kind of Japanese kind of samurai films on there. Maybe that ideal with lightsabers. It's going to be. It should be great.
I do. I think one of the things I love about Rogue One is that they reference a lot of the Akira Kurosawa films that George Lucas was referencing when he did the original Star Wars. So actually, that
it seems like
lose some of the technology a bit. If it's set thousands of years before, like I hope the technology is very different and outdated. I want to imagine if lightsabers aren't even a thing.
Well, exactly. I can't see there being kyber crystals on there. I think you probably won't have that. I think you would talk about swords. I think. I mean, there might be some different type of like laser swords, but I doubt it'll be a lightsaber, which would be so interesting to see. Still having the force powers jumping around, fine, but with actual swords instead. How awesome would that be? I mean, what they've decided to do is basically split this up into 3 different kind of time periods. Each one has got its own kind of, that is a great idea. Finish off the Mandoverse as a movie with a big major movie on there. Fantastic idea. We've got an end game on there. We can, maybe have one more season of The Mandalorian before that comes out, and then that's the big end, and it can finish off Ahsoka. It can finish off on this. All the other films that's been out there, perfect. And then basically just to separate, to start after the start of Skywalker series, and just basically they know what they did wrong. They know what didn't work. They don't need to have a trilogy planned on there. They have set one film, have a good storyline on it, get a good director to do it. Who I think the announcer who did it she sounded like she's going to be a good director. But bringing Rey back on there again for me is actually a good thing, because she's set 15 years after the last film. She's the last Jedi technically on there, whether you want to, Skywalker or whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever, she's going to be a Jedi Master. They're going to be able to introduce all these characters. I just can't see how they're not going to have Grogu in it. I can't see that not being the case. Him, maybe even Ezra around on there as well. He could be just absolutely epic on there with these kind of, there's going to be a new Sith. There's going to be, obviously, there's going to be a Sith that's out there. It's going to be...
Oh, yeah.
Like I said, they know what they did wrong. They can fix it, and I'm looking forward to. I actually, when that was announced, I thought, do you know what? I'm happy to see that. I don't need to see all the rest of the characters on that, and just turn up. Well, brilliant, but if it's just Rey and teaching these young Jedi on there, and then against maybe like I say a young Sith on there, or even an old Sith that we don't know, we thought it was dead or whatever. I don't know, but you can just fix any mistakes you made in that last trilogy. And just do it as one standoff film, and if it's good, it's really great. Then do a sequel. Don't plan to do it as a sequel if you don't know if it's going to be good or not. Because then you're just forcing it, and people are not going to want it.
Yeah, of all the 3 films that are announced, that's the one that I'm most dubious of. I think just because there were so many mistakes in that sequel trilogy, there was just so many false steps that were made. And The Last Jedi gets a load of abuse from all different fields, and some right and some wrong. People that just didn't like it for weird reasons or whatever. I think the big problem for me was that they didn't go into it with an end game. They didn't. No. The Force Awakens, I think, is honestly the best one of them 3. Everyone will just go, it's a remake of A New Hope or whatever. Well, do you know what? It was and it wasn't, but actually it was the right thing that was needed to get the most excitement going from Star Wars. And I know that when J.J. Abrams did it, he sort of threw out the window they had like a blueprint of a trilogy, and I know that he ended up changing that first film so much that the trilogy wouldn't work. Fair enough, but at that point you have got to go, this is what the next 2 films are going to be and are going to look like, and they didn't do that. And it's annoying because there's some things in Last Jedi that are really good. And I loved that Rey was no one. I loved the kid with the broom right at the end who just has a quick bit of force power to grab the broom. Those were the things I really liked. but there was a ton of stuff I didn't like. The fact that it was the slowest car chase in space, and then Rise of Skywalker was just weird.
The exact
They tried.
They tried to. There was a car wreck, and they tried to kind of drive on with that car instead of just basically saying, "Do you know what? We need to kind of just move on and just basically just get away from that whole thing."
I do think one thing that I think is probably going to happen is that the Mandalorian episode we had with the guy who's an expert in clone technology, I'm pretty sure there's some retconning of how the Emperor came back going to be.
Oh yeah, that's what I'm saying. Though. The thing is, I'm okay with that. The whole thing where basically they go back and then make sense, and for me, it's like, do you know what? I can then go back and watch a film and think, do you know what? Even though it sounds like this is all, we know what actually happened. They've told us. Yeah, it was after the fact, and they've fixed it that way. But I don't mind. I honestly don't mind. I love, again, it's something that Star Wars gets away with because it's set in all these different time zones, all these different directs, and then they have to kind of fix mistakes, or not fix mistakes, but basically if something that didn't work, they can always kind of just get a little work around, and it just ends up being good. And I just think that's. I hope they do that. I hope they do that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind them things. Retcon it when something's just bad, and then you have to go out of your way to we get from this point to this point, and it makes no sense. So the retcon is some weird thing that sometimes just feels funky. But things like Tales of the Jedi expanding on Count Dooku was superb. I absolutely loved that because I'm getting a character that didn't get a lot of screen. No, he got a bit of screen time, but he didn't get a lot of growth or anything. He was just generic bad guy. This really took you to town on it. And when Qui-Gon died and you see his reaction in the Tales of the Jedi, and then you see him destroy, I can't remember her name, Girl Yoda. That's what I love. Going back and doing them things.
It didn't retcon it per se. It just basically expanded on a story that made that.
Yeah.
Yes, you can see where he came. He has to do it. He has to be the. He's working for the Emperor, so he has to do what he has to do in those films. But it's nice to know that they can go back, and Dave Filoni knows that he can basically. He's done his animated show so many times. He can basically flesh out a character so well after the fact on there. It looks like it's retconning, but it isn't. It's just basically giving that character more growth on there over time, because that's the problem about Star Wars. It does flip back in and out at a different time period. So I think that's why I really enjoy it. I'm going to go back and say, I've not said this in my pod before. I said tell Dune before. When I first watched Star Wars on there, the first couple of times, I thought they were rubbish. I actually thought they were terrible. I thought they were badly acted. It looked cheap. It wasn't fun at all. And we used to go on at Christmas all the time. And I'm talking from when I was 5 until about maybe 10 or 12. And I'm like, I just don't get it. Why is this fun? And then over time, and then basically the new film got announced on there, and I'm like, okay, let's give it a chance. And I basically got about it, and all this other lore came out, and I started. It was Clone Wars, and I was like, that came out. And it's like, do you know what? It's great. There's actually a lot of story there that you just haven't seen yet, and that's why the great thing about Star Wars is they can do it after the fact and make that original things look better. It's for me, it's one of the benefits of Star Wars, and I think I hope they keep like that going forward as well.
Yeah, the universe of Star Wars, this is one thing George Lucas has given the world, and thanks, George, because it is a huge, expansive universe with characters all over it that are just so rich in story. And I do love characters going on journeys. I think that's why I love Tales of the Jedi so much. Seeing Ahsoka's journey and Count Dooku's journey and where they kind of intertwine and where they dip in and out of the films we've seen. I think because there was only 6 episodes or 8 episodes, I think it sort of could be my favourite bit of animated Star Wars TV, just because it's so condensed and it's sort of it does such a good job of weaving itself through. But like I say, I loved Clone Wars. I'm sure I'm going to love Rebels.
I can't wait for you to watch Rebels. I can't wait for you to watch this. For me, it's peak Star Wars. I still can't get over how good it is.
Well, the other thing is, it's going to make a load of stuff make sense, because watching Obi-Wan Kenobi, I know Obi-Wan Kenobi. I know Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru, and then all these other characters are in it are all from the animated series, and I just don't know them. So I am looking forward to that making some sense. So I think I don't know. What are the big three then for the world of the Star Wars geeks out there like us? What are your like top? What's your most exciting kind of
The
take?
announcements.
Yeah,
I think first of all, the Ahsoka trailer being so Rebel. It's literally Rebels live action. So when you watch Rebels, I mean, you are gonna go nuts for this. The fact that they seem to have introduced one of the main like one of the Sith, and I think it's a Sith, is a massively major character from the books, which I think they're starting to fall back in there. Obviously, they brought back Thrawn, obviously, into live action. They use the original books.
does he have an orange lightsaber, by the way?
Yes, he does have an orange lightsaber, so we're going to see. I actually like him as an actor as well. He seems to be like a fantastic actor as well. So, well, look, I think Ahsoka for me, the trailer was great. Everybody got at home got to see it, and then again, a prequel Jedi story on there potentially without lightsabers, but having the sword on there, set in like I say Japanese Kurosawa type stuff. I think that's got to be, and then obviously the Rey. Obviously they're bringing Rey back on there too. I know some people are not gonna want to see that, but I think basically seeing a movie that is gonna potentially have Grogu, obviously at an age where he can talk, he can wear the Mando helmet on there, he can be an absolute badass. Jedi. I just think that could be. He could be the star of Star Wars going forward. He really could be. He really, really could be.
Do you know what? One of the things that I always struggle with in the Disney era of Star Wars is just kind of getting my bearings on the timeline. Every time I sit down and watch Mandalorian, I'm trying to remind myself, which one's all right. I'm like, I like my bookmarks are the films. I always work off that, and I'm trying to essentially the trilogies. So right, this is after Return of the Jedi, and I'm now thinking I'm not quite sure what the time gap is between Return of the Jedi and Force Awakens.
15
must
years.
Be about 30.
It's 15. I'm sure it's 15 years. No, it can't be 15. Yeah. Oh no! It's Mandalorian set 15 years after Jedi, and then I think 15. That's then it. I think it is. I think it's 15 after that one because they've only just. Oh no! It can't be. No! It can't be. It can't.
I thought because he's a few years.
He's about 50 or something in Jedi. Luke Skywalker. Oh, he's not that, but so he's about what is he like? He's young in that one. So there's about a 30-year gap between. I think either Mandalorian's set 15 years before Jedi.
Wait, so
there's a bit of time jump
in Force Awakens, is Luke Skywalker about 50 years old?
I would say he's about 50 years old because he's left and gone off because he's.
Because in New Hope, he's about 18 years old. So let's say by the time the original trilogy's ended, he's in his very early 20s.
So about 30 years.
So right, 30-year gap. And then Mandalorian is set like... I thought it was about 5 to 10 years after the result.
I think it's about 5 and 10. I think it's about... Because basically Rebels is set, obviously, before... But then obviously the Rebels characters are set... But without ruining it, it's not. So... It's very hard to explain. I can't explain it without spoiling, so I'm gonna have to shut up. So basically, there's a time. It's between them. We know that the new film is set 15 years after the end of Rise of Skywalker. There's no spoilers there, so that's all you need to know, I suppose. That's what we'll go with.
Fair enough.
I just nearly spoiled Rebels, and they're quite badly for you. So I'm gonna shut up.
Oh mate, don't do that. Don't do that. Right, so, okay, I think the one that I'm probably most excited for out of this list of new things, I'm going to say that after I've watched Rebels, I'm going to be excited about the Ahsoka TV show. I mean, I genuinely, I already think she's one of the best Star Wars characters going. She's sort of on that dividing line of not a full Jedi, clearly not a baddie, but appreciates that the balance to the Force isn't just black and white.
Yeah.
That's... so I'm definitely into that. I honestly think the James Mangold one is the one that I'm sort of most excited for. I want to go back in time. I want to see something different in the Star Wars universe. I really want to see that because I do have a couple of reservations with the other two films. So the Rey one with Shameen Obaid-Chinoy.
Yeah.
I'm just a bit wary of going back to that character that sort of really twist and turned that character. That's almost one where it could be a TV show would be a bit more beneficial to kind of expand things and give her enough time as a character to sort of reflect on things that happened in the past. But it's a film.
I think the reason why it's a film is because they're going to do Grogu being an actual character and flipping around and fighting and stuff, and you can't do that on a TV show. You can't. It just costs too much. It's going to too much CFX.
Yeah.
You need time. I don't think she's going to be the main focus. I think she's going to be the Jedi Master, who's basically in charge.
Is she going to be the like?
She's like the council, basically, and then the stars are going to be, like I say, maybe 3 different young Jedi or something. I just think that Grogu's in that film. Disney just know. There's been so much fan out at the moment there with a Mando, with him and the sword and stuff. Disney are not doing it. Really? They know that is going to make so much money. Combine a Mandalorian with a Jedi.
I mean, yeah, come on. It is essentially. How much did you pay for this? $4 billion. Yeah, there's Mandalorian Grogu. $4 billion, please.
Yeah, absolutely.
That raises an interesting point, though. So my other reservation with the Dave Filoni film, whilst I think that guy loves Star Wars, I think he's got his head screwed on. I think he knows it back and forwards, and he's clearly has a lot of time, care, and respect for the characters. My only reservation is that these TV shows at the minute look like films. They don't have the expansiveness that perhaps a film might give you, but in terms of just pause a frame and look at that, it looks like a film. They even shoot them in super widescreen as well, which is sort of weird. My only reservation is taking all of that content and creating something that's genuinely a really good standalone film. Because the worst thing that could happen is no one goes to watch that film because I didn't really watch the Obi-Wan. I didn't really watch the Boba Fett. I don't know how they handle that. That's the one that's got the most complexities for me in terms of just sort of putting a film out there.
I think you're right. You've got that horrible kind of, it's a TV film. You've just pushed up. The only thing I will say is that basically it's got the most recognisable star in the whole thing. It's got Pedro Pascal and it's got Grogu in it.
Yeah.
You can literally put that on the poster and it's going to sell. Do you know what I'm going to say just right now on there? The 3 films, the Rey film will make the most money on there. The second film, it'll make the most money by, I'm talking like 500 million more than all the others. The Mandalorian film made the most money for, as in like selling stuff, as in toys, as in fun, all that sort of merchandise. And the best one will be the prequel one. I think that's what the different side of the release. These 3 things they've picked what's going to work the most. One's going to be the best film, is the first one. One's going to be a merchandise hog, and one's going to make absolute donkey amount of money at the box office.
Do you know what?
Makes sense.
Nails being hit on heads there, my friend. That is absolutely right. Do you know what the worst crime will be? The James Mangold film will be the least box office takings, and it'll not get a sequel, but it'll be by far the best film.
Oh, 100%. No, it's going to happen. I know it's going to happen. You know but you know what will happen is it'll create a new world that they'll be able to do an animated series on, they'll be able to do a game on or something. True, yeah. So once it's been designed, we're not going to miss out on it. We just might not get it at cinemas because it won't. It'll be dark. It'll not make box office like the others two will. That, I'm telling you, that Mandalorian thing will sell so much merchandise, but it'll not make as much as what the Rey film will make. The Rey film will make 1.5 billion, something daft worldwide, easy, without trying. It's got that nostalgia thing, basically, where it's got all the kids at that younger age have been to the cinemas already watching it. They're going to go watch it again because they know the character. It's just going to happen. I'm telling you right now. I'm going to guarantee 1.5 billion easy without even trying on their 1.5.
That puts it high up the rankings because I pulled the numbers through. Force Awakens took just over 2 billion at the box office.
Yeah, it won't make more than not anymore.
Last Jedi did 1.3 billion.
He'll make more than that. Easy.
That's the second biggest box office takings right there.
He'll do it because it's that brand recognisability as well. They're going to put Grogu in it, so it's going to have the merchandise as well, which will basically they'll make money that way. But it will make money because they're going to put Grogu in that film. They are not going to do a They're going to make an aged up Grogu will be a Jedi. It's bank. 1.5 billion on there. We are even releasing a poster, and people will go watch it. If they know that film's coming out, they're going to make it.
Can we get shares in a film? Because
it's going to make money. It's going to make money. And if that's what they're going to do, I mean, if they don't put Grogu in it, then I'll take it all back. But if Grogu, as an adult, is in that, he's going to be talking with a Mando helmet on there, flipping around that screen on there. Oh my God. It is going to make
How are they... There's some tricky things in this, though, because Mandalorians shouldn't take their helmet off, so we're never going to see Pedro Pascal's face again. No. And then if Grogu becomes a full Mandalorian and he takes the vow or whatever they call it, we'll have to put an helmet on him. We'll never see him again. Well, unless he has his ears sticking out.
You've got to, honestly, mate, you've got to see some of the fan stuff on there where his ears actually inside the Mando helmet.
Really?
I'm not kidding. It makes so much money. It's just, and I'm buying 4,000 Funko Pops just of that. I mean, different, one way he's doing this on this side, one way, on this side, I don't care. He's holding a saber. One way he's got a little gun in there. I don't care. I'm buying them all. It's making so much money. It is. Come on.
Oh, yeah, well, yeah. Oh, dear. Yeah, Disney are laughing right now. Absolutely laughing. Right, mate, before we wrap things up, because we've gone way past the half-hour mark, we need to make a decision on something. So, when the prequel trilogy came out, I had, in a world where there are only 6 Star Wars films, I struggled for ages till I worked this out, the right order to watch Star Wars in. So I've told you before, but I'll quickly remind you. So there's a few issues, right? So if you watch the original trilogy and then go to the prequels, you end on, quite frankly, bad films. If you watch all the prequels and then jump into the original trilogy, a lot of things get spoilt for you that you don't want to be spoiled. And whilst there's loads of us have seen loads of Star Wars, there are genuinely people who've never seen anything, don't know anything. So my plan of attack was always this: start with A New Hope. It's just your introduction to the world of Star Wars. It's a nice self-contained film. Obi-Wan Kenobi dies at the end of A New Hope. So then what you should do is you should go back and watch Phantom Menace, because that's Obi-Wan Kenobi's origin story. So you watch that one, then you jump into Empire Strikes Back, and that ends on the cliffhanger that Darth Vader is Luke's dad. You then go back and watch episodes 2 and 3 as Darth Vader's origin story, and then you wrap it all up with Return of the Jedi.
That makes sense to me.
Start and end on great Star Wars content. The prequel trilogies are more are prequels to character developments through the things. That worked perfectly. Now, in a world where there are, 9, 10, 11, technically 12 Star Wars films if you include the Clone Wars, and about 5 million TV shows. How the hell do you watch Star Wars now? What do you do?
You basically just start with A New Hope, watch the original trilogy, so then watch the prequel trilogy, then watch the third trilogy on there really quickly, maybe on like 2 speed. And then go back and watch the series. You can't watch. There's no good order now. It's been ruined for people who haven't already watched the original. So, unfortunately, whoever hasn't seen Star Wars is screwed. And there's no good way. There is no good way of someone's getting either getting stuff ruined, or you're basically watching stuff and it's not going to make sense unless you watch it out of order. So I'm sorry, but unless you're not a Star Wars fan now, there's no point in starting. You might as well go watch Marvel or DC or EastEnders. I don't know. There's no point. Just don't bother,
mate. Yeah, I think you're right. I think that's it. Yeah. On that note, let's wrap up this episode about Star Wars with everyone should just go and watch EastEnders instead.
Oh, wait. That's what you take away with this. No. Get drawing Grogu with a Mando helmet on there. Get practicing, because I want to see it next week.
Yeah, fine. Yeah, let's do that. Mate, fantastic. Thank you as always.
Thank you, buddy.
That was superb. Yeah, brilliant.
Excellent.
And we'll catch up next week. Cheers, mate.
Catch you next week, mate. Bye.